My name is Brian Ernst, and this is the lyrical inspiration behind my song Let It Go, Let It Be. I wrote this song about an experience that my wife, Katie, and I had where we volunteered at the Moria refugee camp in Lesvos, Greece, and with a small nonprofit called Revi that worked with Syrian families who were in Turkey. It was an intense experience, and we were just holding the line. We weren't even the ones who were really experiencing it, like millions of other people. So the first verse: music can be a catalyst of change, like revolutionary warfare in a peaceful way. History, how it all began. If you don't know history, it'll happen again. One of the things that has been critical to my music and my life in general is the scholarship of Dr. Gene Sharp. He was the founder of the Albert Einstein Institute of Nonviolence, and his scholarship and life work has been critical to several liberation movements throughout the world. Dr. Gene Sharp shows case after case after case of where organized nonviolent strategic warfare was able to achieve significant political, social, legal objectives all throughout the world. During the time that I was writing this record, I was very heavily influenced to use my music to educate and inform, and to use it to continue pushing the envelope for the things that are very important to me. There's more to one side to every story. There's more to one life to fame and glory. Don't stand up if you're trying to be tall. Don't stand up if you ain't willing to fall. I also read Dr. Martin Luther King's book, Strength to Love, which is a phenomenal book. Essentially, what Dr. King said was that philanthropy is commendable, but the philanthropist must not overlook the circumstances that make philanthropy necessary. We knew that when we were going out to refugee camps that was going to be unpopular. At the time, I didn't realize. I knew it was going to be unpopular, but I didn't realize how unpopular it was going to be. Which now in hindsight I'm really grateful for, because it meant people were paying attention, and we were challenging and making people think. That was one of the objectives. It's not about us. God bless the ones accounted for, no rest unaccounted for. They say collateral damage can go to hell, but men, women, and children got a story to tell. I'm talking about the ones in the shadow of death. I'm talking about the ones who were falsely arrested. I'm talking about the ones who value their life. I'm talking about the ones that don't want to be bombed at night. When we were in Turkey, we met with hundreds of families from Syria. We were invited into their house, shared meals, played with their kids, built relations, friendships. And we held a lot of space. We listened, we learned, and we heard a lot of stories from folks about the decisions as to why they decided to leave everything that they've built and take their families and flee. We heard stories from people who have bombs that did not detonate, land on their house, right? Bombs coming out of their ceilings, right? Heard stories from mothers that had to start taking their kids to school in groups of 10, 20 mamas and like 20 kids all bundled up together in a tight circle because the snipers could only pick off a few. Whereas if you went solo individual, you're more of a clear target. One of my friends was arrested and imprisoned because he rescued a boat that issued an SOS distress signal, and since that boat was filled with Muslims, he was charged with human smuggling. Charges were dropped, obviously. Not after he spent quite a bit of time wondering about whether or not his freedom was ever going to be granted back to him. The chorus is, let it go, let it be. You can't hold on to what you can't see. Let it go, let it be. Let the past be the past. Future is free. Personally, it meant to me that I was trying to let go of the grief and the anger of how unsettled I was at the general response by the West towards our Syrian neighbors. I was angry. I was blown away that there was such a lack of empathy. That was one of the motivating factors that brought us out there, right? Katie and I spent enough time in Muslim countries to know that all this anti-Islamic rhetoric was completely unfounded. People had the right to claim legal asylum. And when they were denied, they were forced to go to sea. And hundreds of thousands of people died. You endure some kind of traumatic event like that, you still have to find a way to reconcile it, let it go, and move on. And that's really hard. So this chorus was kind of an affirmation to me that I was using for myself, to let it go, let it be. Can't hold on to what you can't see. And I hope that there was some universal relevance for other people. Second verse, there's a couple things that keep me up at night, like where's a smuggled child sleeping tonight? You never forget a mourning mother when she ain't heard from her son or daughter. Yeah, heard a lot of stories from mothers that had no idea if their sons or daughters, friends, neighbors, family, coworkers, aunties, uncles survived the sea. You don't forget that. There's this thing called the human creed. No man left behind, no sister in need. No child should ever be put on a raft. No parent should ever feel that trapped. We have civil and international law for a reason. I wrote that because you can't help but put yourself in the shoes of the people who are telling you these stories. These people had to do this because they were denied safe passage. No parent should ever have to put their kid on a raft. Not through a smuggler. I thought that Western civilization was more civil than that. I thought we had more compassion than that. And that was something that was hard to cope with. What was interesting was a few years later when Russia invaded Ukraine. Millions of Ukrainians, just like the millions of Syrians, Iraqis, and Afghanistan peoples, also didn't want to live in a war zone. And so millions of Ukrainians fled to Poland and the EU and other countries. They were welcomed with arms wide open, which is great. That's the way it's supposed to work. And at some point, Ukrainians were like, our dogs and our cats shouldn't have to go and live in a war zone either. And so the Western countries said, okay, you can bring your cats and your dogs too, which also is great. I support that. But I couldn't help but to think about what it must have felt like to be a Syrian, Iraqi, or Afghanistan person, and to see that the hierarchy of your refugee rights goes Ukrainians, Ukrainian cats, Ukrainian dogs, then Syrians, then Afghanis, then Iraqis. A part of me died digging anonymous graves. That's one thing I'm not proud to say. Go talk to someone, go get some help, If that doesn't work, seek professional help. Tens of thousands of people were drowning on the shores of Lesbos, Greece. It's a small island, small community, small infrastructure. Graveyards filled up. The morgues were backed up. And so farmers started donating tracts of their land for makeshift graveyards. And so one of our jobs out there was to dig the graves. And then, we brought in a Muslim person to do a traditional and customary Islamic burial. But nobody knew who these people were. Their families had no idea that they'd perished at sea. There's no name. They were just given a number on a wooden grave marker. To me, that was one of the most darkest chapters in humanity and Western civilization. And this is one of the most vulnerable and realist lyrics that I've ever written. I took some shots, I took some hits, I triggered generational trauma because I saw some stuff. But it helped me fight and learn to listen, check my rights, check my privilege. A little surprised that I had so many people who were strongly against helping people who are fleeing war. Now I'm all right with it, because if someone is angry, it means they're paying attention. And that's the point. I don't care what they think about me. Then there's a chorus, and then the last verse is, I've been so low, I can't look in the mirror. I ran so fast, the wind dried my tears. Spent a lot of time overseas. Running. Kind of. Fears don't dry till you're face to face. Look your enemy in the eye and sing Amazing Grace. All God's kids lament and mourn when you say pro-life and believe in war. I like that lyric. There's honor in leading with your heart and mind, but these two things are subject to time. So go grab your things, come to take you home. I've seen the blind lead the blind, and there's no way home. What we need is solidarity, philanthropy, and charity. We got to rise above a broken system, respect all life and all religion. Don't beat around the bush, don't twist the facts. Wealth and privilege comes from someone's back. Onishi.